Today we live in a remarkably worldly world, a hostile world to Christians, and we'd be ostriches with our head in the sand if we didn't have some concern about how are our children going to navigate this hostile, persecuting, worldly world as they grow up. Yeah, so what do we do with our fears, with our worries, with our anxiety, maybe even with a certain measure of depression when we see what our children have to grow up with today? I mean, I think about my parents. One died 12 years ago, one died 30 years ago, but I think about even 12 years ago, what would my mother say if she saw today's world with all of its LGBTQ, et cetera, and homosexual marriage and transgenderism and insane stuff that is so contrary to how God made man, so contradictory to man made in the image of God? How do we counter that? How do we not just throw in the towel and say, I give up? Well, number one, we remember God's promises. God is faithful. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he shall not depart from it. That's normative. God will help you. You do what you're called to do. Keep your eye on God and live above the world, even as you live in the world, and don't become of the world. Number two, you need to remember that God has not only promises to help you, but that there's been very, very, very bad times before. In New Testament times, there was a lot of homosexuality in the pagan lands. Think of the time of Daniel. You think it was a small thing for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be the only three standing in a huge multitude and knowing they're going to be thrown into a burning fiery furnace? I mean, none of our kids have been thrown into a burning fiery furnace and their lives at stake. So let's not exaggerate and say, well, it's like we're in the worst times ever, and therefore the church is going to fall apart. The family's going to fall apart. When you raise your family according to the Bible, God has sweet promises. Just think of Psalm 128. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. He'll be happy with his wife, it says. He'll be happy with his children. Olive plants round about his table. He'll be happy in his worship in Zion. He'll be happy in his work. And then it concludes, thou shalt see thy children's children. You'll be happy with your grandchildren. And peace upon Israel. So it's not easy to live in a very anti-worldly world, but God is greater than all the enemies, and that should encourage us.